My name is Krystal McKenzie. I volunteer with the Indian River chapter of Youth for Christ. I've been with Campus Life for consistently about a year at this point. Started about this time last year. And I do Campus Life at various schools about 3 times a week. And then I also helped out with summer camp this past summer. So I actually got involved in Campus Life because I knew another ministry worker who was involved in Campus Life, and he had recommended it to me as an outreach ministry. I started based on that recommendation. I really had no idea what I was getting into, though. So per his advice, it was a great outreach ministry that I could get involved with, but I think I wasn't prepared for how much it was going to change the way that I did ministry. So for me, Campus Life is essentially something that I organize my weekly schedule around. I have 3 days a week that I'm at different schools, and I just prioritize those times. I know that the consistency is key, and I've got to be there at those times. 2 afternoons and 1 late afternoon, evening. That I dedicate to going to the schools and doing ministry directly at the schools. I had only been volunteering with Campus Life for a few months before school ended, and then summer hit. And when the need arose and I was asked to volunteer at camp this summer, I said yes, and I prioritized it and made it my job to be there for those students, but they didn't really know me that well. So I got put in a cabin with a bunch of students that I kind of had never met before, and they didn't know anything about me. I didn't know anything about them. And during that time at camp, we got to build some pretty close relationships. And then coming back from camp, starting the school year, it was really cool because I had learned those students' names. I had gotten into like a group chat with them and been texting them. So when they saw me show up at Campus Life, they were excited to see me. They knew my name, I knew their names. I felt like I had sort of a foothold of students that were familiar with me, and that made me feel really accepted. And it made a difference in my day that they recognized me and that they looked forward to coming to Campus Life to see me. The kids obviously make a huge difference in just getting to see them, and like I said, them lighting up when they see me, that's really special. But I think it's really a toss-up between the relationships that I've built with the kids and also the relationships that I've built with other ministry workers. It's been hugely influential in my ministry to have other kingdom workers kind of come alongside me and give me advice and pray with me. I mean, there's been times that I showed up for Campus Life that I wasn't feeling it, that I was discouraged and a little broken, and they would come alongside me and say, hey, how can we pray for you? How can we help? And that's just huge because it's seeing the church with a capital C come out and do outreach ministry to these kids who most of them don't have a church. And we're all working towards the same goal. I think that's definitely what the church was meant to be. So the time commitment was a little intimidating to me. I had somebody tell me that they had served with Campus Life for a while and didn't anymore, and that he had a hard time making time in his schedule because he was in full-time ministry and he was just so busy. And so I was a little intimidated about whether or not I would be able to commit that much time every week to meeting with students. And when I shared that with someone else who had been involved in Campus Life, he had told me, if you're not doing 90% of your ministry focusing on outreach, then you're not doing ministry the way Jesus did ministry. And that was really influential. I think that was really good advice. I know that with Campus Life, it is a commitment. It is a time commitment for me. But I also know that in doing it, I'm doing ministry the way Jesus did ministry, and I'm prioritizing the lost. And so for me, that made a big difference as a full-time ministry employee to make Campus Life a priority. Just last week, I had a student who was relatively new to me. She'd only been coming for a couple weeks, and a high school student. She showed up with her friends usually, and they would kind of goof off, and they weren't really taking it seriously, which is frustrating. And I had shared that with the other ministry workers that I was like, oh man, they're just showing up because, I don't know, they're bored. They don't really want to be here. And she showed up like 2 weeks in a row, and then the third week, her friends didn't come with her, and she was by herself. And I was like, okay. So this particular student and I had this opportunity to sit one-on-one with each other. And as we talked, she revealed that, yeah, her friends don't really take this seriously. She was really the only one in her friend group that had any kind of faith, so to speak, but that she was doubting her faith. She wasn't sure how much of a Christian she really was, because when she was around her friends, she acts differently. And we had this really amazing, very organic, very unplanned conversation about how we know that we're really doing what God wants us to do, how we sense God's leading in our life. And it was just an amazing opportunity to sit one-on-one with a student who had only known me for a few moments, really, 3 times a week, and or 3 weeks in a row, and to sit there and be so vulnerable and be so open was unexpected. And I think that at the end of the conversation, the advice that I gave her, which was that she had an amazing church that she was plugged into. And I told her, hey, you sound like you love your church. Stay going to your church. Be consistent with that. Bring your friends if you can. Share your faith with them. Don't be afraid to be bold. And that was just a really amazing opportunity that I got to give her some good advice. And I was kind of shocked because I wasn't expecting it from that particular student. She seemed like she wasn't taking it seriously. And then all of a sudden, she really wanted to listen to what I had to say. So that was cool. One thing I love about campus life is it is not a one-man show. I think sometimes when we're working in ministry, we get this impression that we are our agnatic personalities, our magnetic personalities are what's drawing people in, and we have a tendency to kind of make it all about ourselves, and that is not what is happening at campus life. It is not about the people who are serving. It is very much about the kids, and everything is so delegated. But because of that, the more people that are involved in campus life, the more successful it's going to be, because there's able to be more delegated out. The work is more spread out, and it allows us to get more in depth with the students. It's a lot different sitting down with a group of 6 girls and sitting down with a group of 3 girls. So even just that one extra person being in the room makes a huge difference. I loved camp for 2 reasons. The first one's kind of selfish. First of all, the accommodations were amazing. It was just, the facility was so clean and it was nice. We went over to Southwind and I loved it. And it just allowed me to, over the camps that I did this past summer, some of them weren't as nice. And so the facility really allowed me to be able to be comfortable, and that was less stress with the whole camp experience. And I loved the way it was run. It was awesome. But the second reason I really loved camp is because it was so different from other camps I had been to, even that same summer. It was very meeting kids where they're at. The kids were allowed to be themselves. It didn't feel like we were taking these kids, who a lot of them didn't have a whole lot of experience going to church, and kind of trying to cram them into like the Christian environment and expecting them to act Christianly even when their hearts aren't in it. At YFC camp, they were really allowed to be themselves. And it was really us stepping into their environment and speaking to them on their level. And it was a whole different approach to what I was used to. It was really actually refreshing, and it changed the way I do ministry. When I went to camp this past summer, I met like I said, a group of girls that I had never worked with before, that didn't know my name. I didn't know them. And we started to build a relationship at camp. And the amazing thing about that is that I got to go home to the same county and meet those girls at their school and ask them, how's that decision going that you made at camp? It really was a big way to follow through with them, that they know they're going to see me every week. And so the decisions they made at camp weren't just, okay, good luck with that as you're on your walk with Jesus all by yourself. I got to really kind of pull them into my little group when I showed up at their school. And I've also been able to, as a youth leader, invite them out to my church and have them get involved in events and things that we've put on. So that's been really huge, because it's not just I'm gonna see you at camp and then I'm gonna leave and we're never gonna talk again, which was the case, unfortunately, at some other camps that I had been to. But going to camp with YFC meant that I'm going to be starting, even though I was very new and didn't know anybody, I was starting afresh and building relationships that I would be able to actually follow through with later. The relationships that I built with other ministry workers here at YFC, I'm still trying to figure out how to reach these kids. I'm pretty new in ministry, and it was huge for me to be able to step into this role and get involved in YFC at the same time, because they helped me to build and shape my ministry. I looked to them for advice, like when I had kids with who were being really disruptive, and I was struggling in figuring out how to address it, how to handle it. I was able to look to the example of the ministry leaders at YFC and follow their examples in the way that I address that in my ministry. That example, and then so many others I could think of, that when it came to, so there were times that I needed prayer. I just needed somebody to encourage me and lift me up, because ministry's hard. And I also leaned on YFC for that. And Libby and Beck were, and have been and are, amazing in the way that they encourage me. They've been discipling me as well. And that's not something I really expected. I expected to come alongside as a volunteer to help them with their mission. I didn't expect them to help me. If I could give a piece of advice to somebody who's thinking about volunteering with YFC, I would say I wish I'd done it sooner. It's been huge, and it's so needed, because these kids, statistically, most kids don't go to church these days. Statistically, their parents aren't going to church. This is what Jesus did. He met people where they were at, and studies have shown that when a kid is involved in a ministry where they had a mentor meeting with them on a consistent, regular basis, that they were more likely to seek out that same relationship that they had built in high school when they go off to college. And some of the studies even say they're 3 times as likely to seek a church if they had a mentor back home. I think that it is hugely influential in these kids' lives. I think it makes a huge difference as to whether or not they want to be a part of the church with a capital C wherever they go, wherever they end up later on. The ministry work that starts here at Campus Life sticks with them, and I believe that.